Hello lovelies, welcome to Night Free Formula. My name's Freedom. Thank you for joining me this evening. Tonight I wanted to talk about whether or not the narcissist is dangerous. I get a lot of questions from women, who are, I suppose, confused about the identity of their narcissist, because one of the problems is that when we refer to narcissists, we're actually referring to a broad spectrum of people. So on the narcissistic personality disorder spectrum, and then also on the antisocial personality disorder spectrum. So we're talking about narcissists, malignant narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths, and then we have what's called the dark triad, which is the kind of intersection between narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism. And when we talk about all of these kind of groups, we refer to them as narcissists. Just purely out of convenience, more than anything, to be honest. So what we need to do, I suppose, is we need to kind of take a little step back, because what happens is, I speak to women who say, well, my husband's never been violent before, or, mine never raises his voice, or, he's never physically hurt me. And this may all be true, and, that's great, but I just want to remind you all of Shanann Watts. Okay, now I'm sure that Chris Watts was the ideal husband up until the point where he murdered those little girls and then murdered his wife. Sorry, the other way around. Murdered his wife and then murdered those little girls. So he was managing to keep his behavior under control. Put on the performance, put on this act, the mask, keep that mask in place. He was capable of doing that for a very long time. They were married for years, 6 years, 7 years. So, it's possible to have a mask in place for a long period of time. It's not an indicator of whether or not they can be violent. It just means they're not being violent. And the reality is that just like Chris Watts, all of the narcissists, psychopaths, and sociopaths, they all have issues around object constancy, and and so basically, when they don't have a need for you, when they do not idealize you anymore, when they're in the process of discarding you, they don't even see you as being human. They almost see you, depending on how, obviously, this, the set of circumstances as to how it's all going down. Like in Shanann's case, Chris obviously just saw her as an inconvenience, something that had to be gotten rid of, a loose end that had to be tied up, so that he could start his new life with his new mistress, the one he'd known for all of 5 weeks, 6 weeks. And he'd had other affairs, so, he'd been trying on other, people and other lifestyles. He'd been, giving it a go, but obviously none of that had taken his fancy quite like this new woman did. And, Shanann herself was quite shocked in how cold he became. I mean, she was 15 weeks pregnant when he murdered her. So it wasn't that long ago that they were having sex and planning a future and more children, adding people into their family, adding more children into their family. So to kind of go from that to then murdering her and the children, I mean, that's quite disturbing, but it just shows how kind of, I suppose, out of touch with reality they are. This sense of entitlement that they've got, I want my family gone, so I'm just going to make that happen, and I'll get away with it because I'm super smart. I'm so much smarter than everyone else. I mean, these are the things that, that Chris Watts actually was thinking, that he would actually get away with it. So when we talk about, are these guys dangerous? Well, yes, they really are, because they're maladapted. The way they're processing and their thoughts and their emotions and the way it all works, it's not normal. And so the normal rules, I suppose, just don't apply to them. And when they're done with you, they're done with you. All right, so let me just go through my notes. Yeah, so look, you can't focus on their current behavior. You can't say, well, he's never been violent, so therefore he never will be. You just can't rely on that. What you can rely on, though, is the diagnosis. If they've been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder or antisocial personality disorder, or even if you have, self-diagnosed them. I mean, you've spent enough time with them. If you've gone through the checklist, if they've checked off, I think it's 6 in one checklist or 5 in the other. I think that's right. If you've gone through the DSM-5 and you've actually gone through the criteria, the diagnostic criteria, and you yourself have said, yes, they definitely have, X amount of symptoms, then it's safe to say that, yes, they are a narcissist or sociopath, psychopath, and that is something you can rely on. So what that means is when the goalposts of the relationship shift, so when you no longer either want to give them what they want, or they don't want it from you anymore, or they can't get it from you anymore, the goalposts shift, and now you've created a narcissistic injury, and they're angry, and they want to hurt you. They want to punish you. They want to show you who's got control. So this is the ways that this kind of stuff happens. So yeah, I just keep going back to poor Shanann. Like, in her wildest dreams, she wouldn't have imagined that happening. Not in her wildest dreams. But it did. All right, so yeah, object constancy. So when they're not in love with you anymore, or when they no longer idealize you or need you or want you, in their mind, you just don't have any value, and your sovereignty as an independent human being, that they don't care about that. That's nothing to them. So basically, if you don't exist to serve them, you do not exist at all. Like, they just don't care about you and your life if it's not to serve them. And as I said, depending on the circumstances, you may be an inconvenience to them, or they may see you as someone that's betrayed them, someone that's hurt them, someone that's taken advantage of them, someone who's got the better of them. And this is the stuff that makes them really, really mad. And they suffer narcissistic injury, which is this kind of, really extreme and unpredictable bouts of rage. And that's over the top as well. It's excessive outbursts. So it's not in direct, it's not a direct kind of consequence to your behavior. It's more extreme. So you do something minimal and they go over the top with a rage that, is quite terrifying to behold. And when you see it, like, there's something wrong. You don't understand what's actually going on, but what it is that, the mask that they're holding in place, they don't bother. They let it slip a little bit. That's what you're seeing, is their absolute hatred of you, of what you stand for, of any kind of, in their mind, any kind of control that you have over them. But they hate you for that. They absolutely hate you for that. And you've got to understand that. You've got to snap out of this kind of false belief that, that they love you the way you love them. They just don't. It's not about love for them. It's about control, and it's about power, and it's about fuel. And if you're not giving them fuel, i.e., the attention, adoration, that they want, if you're not supplying them up with fuel the way they want, then they could quite easily decide to get rid of you. And if that meant, in their twisted mind, choking you and then dumping your body in an oil well or in a shallow grave. I mean, Shanann's not the first woman to die at the hands of her, narcissistic husband. Not the first woman at all, and sadly won't be the last. All right, so there's lots of different ways that they can be dangerous to you. So yes is the answer. Yes, they can be dangerous, and these are the different ways. So they can be dangerous to your mental health, because it's not, you can't be with someone who gaslights you, who blatantly lies to you, who pretends that something that has happened didn't happen, or that something they've said that they didn't say. They gaslight you. They literally make you think that you are going crazy. So that is dangerous. For someone to kind of mess with your head to the point where you think you're going crazy, that's dangerous. I've heard of women who have been incarcerated. Is that the right word when you're talking about mental health? I'm not sure if it's the right word, but put into a mental health institution, by their caring, loving husbands, who did it deliberately as a punishment, or deliberately because they wanted to go and spend some time with a new supply and they wanted the wife off the scene for a while. And her displays of erratic behaviour made it so easy. So this is one of the very real ways these blokes are dangerous. They can be dangerous to our physical health, not just in acts of violence. I mean, that's a very real thing. As I said, even if they've never been violent towards you ever, that doesn't mean that they are not going to be. They definitely have the capacity. They don't have remorse. They don't have, compassion or empathy. So they don't care if it hurts you. They don't care if you're scared. They don't care about any of that stuff. So they're certainly not going to care if you're pleading and begging for your life. In fact, they'll get off on that. That will give them fuel. That's one of the ways they get fuel, by feeling so powerful. But so yeah, not just physical violence or threat of physical violence, but the long-term, the effects of long-term stress on the body. That is a very real threat as well. So you can't be in a relationship with these blokes for years without there being some kind of detrimental effects on your physical body. You can't have all those stress hormones going through your body without it aging you. We're talking about people who've had end up having kind of chronic what is it? I'm having a mental blank. Sorry, guys. Chronic PTSD, and kind of anxiety disorders, stress-related things, anxiety, chronic fatigue, adrenaline over, like because of their adrenaline, because they've been literally walking on eggshells for so long, their adrenaline glands, or their adrenals, get shot to high hell, basically. And this kind of stuff, it's like living in a war zone. You can't do it without there being a physical detriment to your body. So that is another way they are dangerous to us. Yeah, sure, they might not ever lay a hand on you, but you might die of cancer because you've been, had all these stress hormones pumping through your body for so long, and because, you've never gone to the doctors and looked after yourself because you're always too busy, caught up in their daily dramas or focusing on them, or whatever the, whatever the reason you didn't get to go and see a doctor, and things like this, financially. Are they dangerous to our bank accounts? Hell yeah. Are they dangerous to our finances, and our properties and that kind of thing? God, yeah. Narcissists, psychopaths and sociopaths are known for coming in, getting what they want, taking what they want, and then leaving. And they, they are creatures of habit. They will do it over and over again to all kinds of different women, and they don't even think twice about it. They, they destroy lives, they destroy finances, leave families, without homes over their heads, roofs over their heads, without any money in the bank, totally destitute, and they don't care. That's nothing. They just don't care about it. So not only do they commit these kind of acts or crimes, but they just don't care. And yes, they will destroy your reputation. They will isolate you from your families. These are all the different ways. I mean, there's just so many different ways. I could literally probably sit here for at least another half an hour listing off the ways that narcissists, psychopaths, and sociopaths are dangerous to us. But I think you get the general gist of where I'm going. Okay, it's not enough to just say to yourself, oh, well, he's never hit me. He's been a gentleman up to now, or it's all just been, mental abuse. He's never actually physically hurt me. Like mental abuse. If it's got the word abuse at the end of it, then it's abuse. Okay, just because it's just mental abuse, that doesn't mean it's okay. Mental abuse can be just as damaging as physical abuse, because at least with physical abuse, people can see there's something going on. When you see yourself in the mirror, you can see when you've been physically hurt. When you have been put through, years of emotional abuse or psychological abuse, that kind of abuse is harder to see. So it's harder to actually to know that it's happening, to tell other people that it's happening, or it's harder for other people to see. So it's quite isolating as well. There's lots of different ways. All right, so I suppose the main thing to remember here is that the narcissists and psychopaths are very vindictive, and they will try and hurt you if you've left them. They'll try and punish you in some way. They want to show you who's the boss, who's in control, and it's not beyond them to to physically control you, spy on you, manipulate you, lie to you. I mean, there are so many ways these guys can be dangerous. So please don't kid yourself for 1 minute. As I said, just remember Shanann Watts. Okay, when you're doing the, oh, well, he's never hurt me physically. Okay, just remember Shanann Watts. And just imagine how absolutely terrifying that would have been. What a horrific, horrific death. The cognitive dissonance that poor woman would have gone through, when he actually did that, when he actually was choking her for the 3.5 minutes that it took for the life to drain out of her body. She would have been, the whole time, she would have just been thinking, why, what is going on? Like, is this real? I can't believe this is real. It feels so surreal. Am I dying? Is Chris really killing me? Is this really happening? What a horrible, horrible, horrible way to go out. All right, lovelies. Yeah, look, if you're still with narcissists, please figure out an exit strategy. Get yourselves safe. These guys aren't, it's not safe to be with them. Okay, it's just not safe. These blokes are maladapted. The way they think, that they're just not well at all, and they can quite easily snap in a little narc rage and hurt you. And accidents happen all the time. People accidentally break people's necks, and they accidentally push someone down the stairs, and they accidentally, and there are other things as well. There have been many people who have been poisoned, for example, slowly and steadily by narcissists. They're quite devious. They live in this kind of surreal fantasy world where they are omnipotent and they can do whatever they want, and it's all about fuel and supply for them, and they kind of get off on what they can get away with. If they can get away with this and that, then it makes them feel powerful. So they kind of push the boundaries. They're reckless. They're reckless. They just don't care. And it's almost like, they get off on taking the risk, of hurting you, whether it is through things like, poisoning you, drugging you, whatever. So they kind of get off on that. And then there's also the aspect that, that if they get caught, they love the thrill of the idea that, what if they get caught, and then they'll have to talk their way out of it. And that makes them feel powerful as well. When the evidence is so obvious, they've been caught red-handed and they manage to talk their way out of it. That gives them the biggest thrill. And remember this, they are almost like junkies like that. They love that fuel, they love the attention, they love the energy. So they play these little games, like when they get bored, and we know that they are kind of pathologically bored, like they're always bored. So, you know, when they've got supply and they don't really want to be with them, but they can't really get away from them, you know, they'll play little dangerous games, you know. And I think about women, for example, who are involved in situations where, you know, there's drug use going on. I've seen this kind of firsthand, you know, with these men who, you know, they take risks, accidentally give her too much drugs. You know, it could be a bit fun. You know, she might get a bit messy. She might almost die. But, you know, they push the envelope. They kind of just don't care. It relieves their boredom for them. And when you've got someone who's so chronically bored that they will risk, you know, your health, you are with someone who is fucking dangerous. Okay? So not just dangerous, fucking dangerous. All right, lovelies. Take care. Get yourselves nut free. Thanks for watching. Good night.